Welcome back, everyone. This is Tucker. Let's talk weather. Severe weather is still not over. I'm talking about who gets impacted next. But our pattern is changing. I'm looking ahead at our next potential storm. Not to mention the temperature swings in between. Hey, everybody. Hope you're doing well, especially those of you who are being impacted by the flooding, the severe weather. I hope your recovery especially is going well. We've had a crazy week of weather. No two ways about it. It's been 7 straight days of severe storms and flooding, and we finally have some big changes on the way. That said, severe weather is still a factor, and we're going to jump into that right now. And you're seeing to the right of me here our live radar as we wrap up our Sunday. Still an active area of showers and some severe storms, but luckily for areas impacted most significantly by flooding, that rain is finally beginning to move out. Although there are still impacts we're going to dive into right now that are going to be impacting us as we begin the week. So here's our severe weather outlook, and you can see once again we have this level 2 risk in yellow across states like Florida, Georgia, and South Carolina. Even into North Carolina, there is the potential for some severe storms. It is mainly a wind threat at this point, but there is still a low to moderate tornado threat where you're seeing those areas shaded in brown, mainly where that level 2 risk is, and this should finally be our last big day of severe weather. Let's time it out for you. This one will be more straightforward. Storms weaken at night, and then as we get into Monday morning, you're seeing them sort of resurge here, and where you have that greatest threat, it's pretty obvious. You have the greatest coverage of storms here. This is mainly going to be coming in the afternoon and evening on your Monday. And then eventually as we get into Tuesday, storms really move away, except for southern Florida, which could still see some damaging wind gusts and a low chance for a tornado Tuesday afternoon as well. But that's primarily going to be around Lake Okeechobee and farther south. Now that that's out of the way, what's coming next? Well, I'm glad you asked. Wait, did you ask? Well, you're getting a forecast anyway. And we're starting with the big picture, our jet stream, which you're going to see is quite active in the southeastern U.S. as we begin the week here. That's why we still have that severe weather threat and even a chance for some snow, which we're going to get to in just a moment on our future radar. But I'm going to move this through the middle of the week, and I'm going to tell you one thing, completely honest, and you're probably hearing something different where else you look on the internet. But this week's going to be kind of quiet. There's still some people trying to hype up the weather, make a story where there really isn't one, and I'm going to give it to you straight up all the time. It's not going to be a bad week. But that said, we still have things to watch. So let's move this forward into the upcoming weekend, and you're going to notice maybe 2 things here. One, we got one storm system we'll need to watch for the East Coast perhaps into the weekend. This may develop too late once it moves offshore, but it's something to keep an eye on. Then we got this guy here. Doesn't really look like a big deal right now, but this will become a player in our weather next week, especially in the middle of next week, when we have the potential for, in my opinion, some severe weather. We could see it across the Midwest and plains out here. Even the Southeast is possible, but more importantly, I believe we may be looking at a chance for snow somewhere in the north central U.S., and this is something that we will definitely be keeping an eye on. But until then, our weather is on the quieter side. That said, there is still some chances for snow, rain, and a couple of temperature changes in between. So let's jump into those now and get you ready for the week ahead. By the way, guys, if you like my videos, you like these forecast updates, be sure to subscribe and just let me know where you're watching from in the comments. Love to interact with you guys and continue to grow this channel. All right, so here's our future radar. You can see those storms beginning to move offshore here like we showed you on Monday, but I also want to mention on Monday, out here towards the northeast, that is a real chance for some snow in the mountains in northern New England. Could be up to 6 inches in some spots, especially in those mountains in Maine. Meanwhile, in the western U.S., you are seeing another storm system hit the mountains out there, which will add to more snow across the Pacific Northwest, at least the higher terrain out there in the Rockies, and some rain on the coastline. Could be a decent bit of rain on the coastline, too. But like I said, I can't believe it when I see this on the internet, but there's still some people trying to hype up the weather forecast for this week. And what you can see here is actually very little going on. This is a good thing. On Wednesday, I mean, there are no strong storm systems going across the U.S. So if you get a chance this week, might not be a bad one for some spring cleaning, as our weather should be quiet and the winds, generally speaking, should be on the lighter side, generally speaking. Now, as we head into Thursday, you are going to see that system I was talking about try to develop on the East Coast. Yes, there could be some storms in the southeastern U.S., the eastern U.S. here too that may end up being severe, but it's not going to be a big threat. Meanwhile, that player next week that could become a snowstorm, well, it's going to hit the Pacific Northwest heading into Friday. That's going to bring some snow to the mountains and a good amount of rain to the coastline. There you are as we head into the weekend. That is rain that reaches the northeastern U.S. as that system develops. I'm not seeing much in the way of snow, but it could be a rainy one for parts of the East Coast, especially the Northeast as we get into the weekend. And then we got this guy beginning to develop. This is what we're going to be watching for next week. Again, we're giving you an early warning here, but that is going to be our player as it begins to develop and then deepens as we head into the middle of next week. And what you're seeing here would be that potential for a snowstorm. And again, the position of this is going to change. Hey, in 5 days, it might not even be there, but I do see a signal, so I want to let you know early. And we also have that threat for some severe weather along a front that'll be cutting through the plains and especially the Midwest. Even the Southeast has a chance at something here. So let's jump into those temperature changes too, because that's going to be a bigger factor in our weather this week, and get you ready for what you're going to feel as you step out the door. So we start the week off like this. That looks pretty good, right? Well, let me explain it to you. As we take a look at Monday and Tuesday, what you're seeing is this colder air mass begin to take over in the eastern U.S., especially the Northeast. There will be a little bit of cold weather in the morning on Monday if you're in the central U.S., but that quickly gets replaced by this ridge that starts to develop out here. That's going to warm up much of the western U.S., especially the Southwest. And it's been hot in the Southwest. That hot weather is actually going to continue to build. And as we head into the middle and later days of this upcoming week, look at this ridge that develops across the western U.S. That is a sign of quite warm weather across especially the lower parts of the atmosphere. Meanwhile, out east, while I don't expect it to be cold per se, it is going to feel more like March. And that's going to take us through at least the majority of this week, with some warming coming eventually as we get into the weekend if you're in the Northeast. But we're still going to see this pattern persist where it's going to be generally warm and more May, even June-like, out in the western U.S. and central U.S., and then noticeably cooler in the eastern U.S. So this week, if you're in the east, expect it to be like March. If you're in the west, May or June is what you can expect. I'll push this forward a little farther since we're going through this forecast quickly. As we head into the middle days of April here, there is still a signal that this pattern may stick around. You can see that ridge, generally speaking, out here in the western U.S. and that cooler trough out there in the Northeast. The question is, does this guy keep the Southwest warmer? Does it bring spring back? That's something that we'll have to wait and see, and you want to check back on. But let's take a look at actual temperatures so you know what to plan for. So here are your Monday temperatures. Again, a little chilly in the south central U.S. Really not a big deal, though. And again, anyone who's telling you it's a big deal, it's big cold, don't listen to them. Because look at here. On Monday afternoon, we're already back into the 70s and even 60s across a good chunk of the U.S. Anywhere you're seeing those orange and red colors primarily. We're even looking at 90s once more in the south and western U.S. So we're doing pretty well temperature-wise. Now, as we head into your Tuesday, these temperatures, they'll be cooler in the Northeast. You're looking at 30s indicated by those blue colors, 40s in the greens, and still 60s, 70s, even 80s in those red colors and pink colors across the central and southwestern U.S. Could be in the mid-90s if you're in the Phoenix area. Then as we head into your Wednesday, again, that mild weather stays in place. The western U.S. going to stay pretty warm, hot if you're in the southwest, cooler in the Northeast where those temperatures stay primarily in the 40s. We're going to see a pretty similar pattern evolve here on Thursday and into Friday as well. You can see pretty clearly where the warmth is and isn't, though those temperatures do begin to moderate just a bit more in the eastern U.S. But certainly it is going to feel, like I said, more March-like if you're on the east side of this ridge, and definitely more May-like if you're on the west side there. So temperatures, for the most part, going to be in the 70s and 80s if you're in the western U.S., mainly in the 40s and some 50s in the eastern U.S. And this will continue into the weekend, though you'll notice again in the plains, those temperatures do recover a bit quicker out there than they will out east. So wherever you are, you know what to plan for. Make sure you're dressing for the season and get ready because allergy season's really picking up, and that is going to accelerate a lot more this week too. So we'll end it on that, short and sweet, but make sure to ask any questions you have in the comments. Make sure to let me know where you're watching from and subscribe if you like the videos. We did a lot of coverage this week. Hope you enjoyed it, and I'd love to interact with you if you have any questions or just want to talk weather. So I'll see you guys here next time, and again, I wish the best of recovery for all you impacted by storms.